Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Aspergers Studios. Today on the show, I'm joined with Ryan Litchfield, who is a PCM Administrative Assistant. He's going to talk about what it is, what he does, and what his life is like being with someone who is on the spectrum. God damn it, why? Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Aspergers Studios. Today on the show, I'm joined with Ryan Litchfield. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you, Reed. It's an honor to be here. I'm very happy to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So when I was 2 years old, I was diagnosed with actually pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. So it was like under all of these different types of like autism, but there were definitely the signs and symptoms of the autism spectrum disorder, especially before the age of 2. So I had trouble with eye contact. I had trouble expressing what I wanted, what I needed. um, I couldn't even talk or communicate. Right around that time, my family was really concerned, and they actually had a sign language book, because at one point they thought they were going to have to communicate with me via sign language. And so they had that, as a part of that plan, just in case I wasn't able to like verbalize what I needed or something. I had like I said, temper tantrums. I It was definitely a struggle, like in the early stages of life. I did go through about hours and hours of applied behavioral analysis within my own home. I also went through speech therapy, occupational therapy. I went through social skills, pragmatics types of groups, pretty much all the different types of services that you can think about. I did have special education services throughout my public school career. I did have aid support. I also had, some counseling, especially when I was going through some of the rough patches right around middle and high school. I know elementary school was definitely challenging because I had trouble with like loud noises and had trouble with, connecting with people my age. So then basically, going forward, middle school, I tried to fit in, trying to, be part of a math club, being part of, a band, playing the alto saxophone, and just trying to connect with people my own age. And then at that point, I went on to high school, and that was a tough transition for me. I had a family member that passed away. It was my grandmother, and I just remember that it was just difficult, just getting adjusted to more students, more expectations, more just getting used to a different structure between middle and high school. I also, went through some, anxiety and depression too. So it definitely was a tough transition, but I think things really started to turn around for me when I went to, into my junior year of high school. So me and another friend of mine, we were both on the spectrum. We both went to an elementary school in my town, and we shared our stories of, being on the autism, spectrum, sharing challenges and the successes, and, people were really inspired just to hear from those experiences. And I developed an autism support group, not actually an autism like awareness group up
Mm-hmm.
in high school, um, because I was trying to, get more educators, teachers, students, to get more aware of the autism spectrum and stuff. So, and I ended up, my grades started getting better. I really started to find, success in the high school toward the end. Um, and then I went on to college. I pursued my bachelor's degree in human services and rehabilitation, and also pursued my certificate in aging services. And the reason I did that is, one of the things that's really interesting is that there are a lot of adults that are like living within the United States, particularly, like in this country. And there are more individuals now being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and it's just the prevalence, and the rates are just continuing to increase. And it, I think something that really just the insight that I got from, those studies, and something that really came to mind was, I really do think at some point there needs to be more services and supports for adults on the autism
Yes,
spectrum.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I got so many ideas in my head about what kind of help I would love to do and create. It's just amazing. But anyways, how was, first let's start off with, you went through ABA, right?
Mhm.
How was that for you?
So ABA therapy was, I will say, kind of what my therapist told me at one point. I mean, there were good days and there were bad days. There were definitely its challenges, but there were also its successes. I had a really I have a really great relationship with my ABA therapist, and we also had some funny moments. Like, I'll give an example. Back like back in the day, there was, McDonald's Happy Meal toys. I believe at that time the Lion King was out at the time, and I believe I had a Mufasa action figure, and for some reason I was reenacting the Mufasa death scene in the Lion King, which, it's kind of like that interaction with objects, associating objects with, toys with, how to play with them and so forth. And then the other part I will mention too is, I also learned, actually it was through my ABA therapist friend, learning how to ride a bike. And that's how I really just enjoyed, going on a bike. I haven't been on a bike for a while, but I definitely enjoyed it when I was younger.
So you are one of the few who've really had a good experience with their ABA.
Yes, and actually, she and I, she and I actually, we presented in a psychology class when I was in high school. Actually, to several psychology classes when I was in high school, and we also presented up at the college too, to students and staff. So, we had some really great opportunities to connect there, and, to, share the perspective from, my lived experiences, and also, giving the ABA therapist, the opportunity to, share um, the perspective that, her viewpoint as well. Um,
All
you know,
right.
I think that's really important, especially because I think that's, and people are saying like, oh, they're trying to focus on, these types of therapies and stuff early, and as soon as an individual is diagnosed. And pardon me. So what's, supposedly what I hear is that when they catch it, sooner, or, when they find out that, somebody has autism, they try to go through these different types of therapies and stuff sooner rather than later, and there are families that, find loved ones that are having, success and that are making progress in their lives. Unfortunately, I can't say that for all families and loved ones, but there have been clearly a lot of success stories. You see all the famous autism advocates out, not just like in my state of Massachusetts, but also within the United States and just globally. And I think in the context of like ABA, and something that I will mention too is, I don't think it should be looked at as, you know, oh, it's the best thing in the world. And I don't think I should look at it as it's the worst thing in the world. I'm kind of neutral. And I kind of look at it as, being a tool, like a toolkit for trying to, it's kind of like the beginning stages of communication and the beginning stages of socialization. The reality is like, I mean, I've come across various social situations where the reality is that not everything is black and white, as they say, and there's more
Mhm.
shade of gray. So and I know people will have their opinions. Some people are for, ABA, others are against ABA, and I 100%, respect that. And I can understand both perspectives, but I also think, it's kind of like I'm trying to look at, trying to find the silver lining per se too, but I know people have those different experiences, but, it's kind of like, counseling where, yeah, you go see a therapist, and then, you get some guidance and support and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is your life. And this is also like, you're going to take, you're going to make the choices, you're going to make the decisions, especially once you get into adulthood and stuff too, like, when it comes to independence and that sort of a thing. So I think ABA has truly helped me to get this far in my life. And I mean, if it weren't for my parents' advocacy and my family's advocacy and the great relationship I have with the ABA therapist, I don't think I'd be here today.
All right. Now, do you have ADHD as well?
As far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, I do not have ADHD. I just have autism. I'm basically, now today it's called autism spectrum disorder. But as I mentioned earlier, the actual diagnosis was pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I'm glad they simplified. They took all of these different, diagnoses, and then they just put everything together to, autism spectrum disorder now.
All right. Now, during your time in high school and even in grammar school, what was it like for you making friends?
Yeah, so definitely elementary school. It was definitely very challenging. I mentioned earlier, I definitely had sensory overload. I was not used to like the structures of like the, schedule of the day, or, it's like loud noise, like when students got really loud, and I was just like, I just got, upset and frustrated. Um, and I think I also just, at that time, I was like
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And some people, are comfortable like being alone per se, but at the same time, it was like I was trying to, connect with my peers, and that was a struggle. It was not easy for me to, it's almost like trying to figure out like what they're talking about, or, when's the appropriate time to, engage in conversation or something like that. And then I think, middle school, like I said, I made the effort to, be part of the band and the alto saxophone. I was part of a math club. I was part of it. I did try going to a dance. Um, and it was still difficult. It was just, I just, it felt like it was just hard for me to fit in. I think part of me was like, I wanted to be with my peers. And another part of me is like, having this anxiety, this heightened level of anxiety, or this, this feeling of like, I can't do this. And, it's, um, so it was definitely challenging. Even in high school, I mean, I was kind of more focused on the academics. I mean, at times I kind of wish I could have been a little bit more involved socially, but again, I think, you know, sometimes it was just, and high school can be challenging for anybody, not even just for individuals on the autism spectrum. It's just, but I mean, it's almost like when you have, autism spectrum disorder, and then you have all of these, these, difficulties with adolescence. It's almost like a double-edged sword sometimes for, it was definitely the case for me. It's been like for a little bit, and I'm sure it was the case for other, high school, individuals, with autism and stuff. So I think, like I said, I tried to form that autism awareness club. I tried to put myself out there, you know, yes, was I academically successful? I mean, yeah, that's great and all, but I think, you know, I look back at it and it's like, and I do have some positive moments, in high school. I don't want to say high school like the worst thing and was the worst experience for me, but um like I said, it was not easy to navigate as somebody on the autism spectrum.
All right. So why don't you tell me a little about where you are now working wise? I mean, are you happy doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so let me give a little snapshot about that. So so what I'll mention is after I graduated from, so I ended up actually going to Assumption College, and it's now actually called Assumption University. It's one of the colleges here in Massachusetts. Like I mentioned, I pursued my bachelor's in human services. I also pursued my certificate in aging services. And I mean, unfortunately, I did actually make some friendships, at that time. I think it was a little bit easier there. But going back to this direction, I started off at an agency that worked with families and individuals, and it was like an ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis company. I was an administrative assistant for human resources. So I did that for a little while. Then I went to an agency that worked with older adults and people with disabilities. So I basically, I assisted the case managers with, setting up the case files, doing the assessments for personal care, homemaking, those, sorts of services that, people might need. I also, I did receptionist work, and I've also tried being a stay-at-home care case manager, which I had like 100 consumers on my caseload, and after a month, I was just, it dawned on me. It was like this was just not the career path for me. So over the course of time, I'm trying to, because my passion is, autism advocacy and awareness, and I mean, like it's just been a passion of mine, trying to help autism communities and stuff over the course of time. But eventually, I actually was at one point a autism peer specialist,
Oh,
an organization. So basically, I don't know. Have you ever heard of the certified peer specialist for like mental health? There's
no.
no. So I believe in the United States, they have a certified peer specialist, which was originally designed to support, it basically what it does is it takes people who have lived experiences with mental health issues and substance abuse, challenges. And what they do is they connect with other individuals. So they bring the lived experiences and they're sharing that with the other individuals to promote, support and guidance, and, trying to motivate them, educate them, give them the information and resources, it could even focus on independent living, and it can focus on a variety of different needs. But what I was doing is connecting with adults on the autism spectrum. So I do like check-ins, phone calls, I might, help somebody with employment goals, educational goals. And so I was doing that for a little while, and I kind of, I'm thinking, yeah, this is something I do want to do. This is kind of like my niche and stuff. And so unfortunately I had some, health challenges along the way too, between college and, employment, where, I had epilepsy. So I mean, I had actually had 2 seizures.
Right.
One when I was in college, and there was another, like, I want to say like a couple of years ago, maybe. Both times I couldn't drive for a while. I had to suspend my driving for a little while. And I also have a thyroid disease. So I actually had to have my thyroid surgically removed, because I was having symptoms of that too. So it was kind of like a medical roller coaster for a little while, which definitely had an effect on, Not really college, but definitely unemployment. And I will say there was a time where I actually I had such bad anxiety and I had really bad depression. Like I was at a point where at one point, I just couldn't work and I just, I could not, I couldn't function at work and I couldn't do the job. And so I tried applying for disability benefits twice. Both times I was actually denied.
Mm.
And actually the reason that Social Security mentioned that was because, oh, autism will improve. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like,
Mm.
I don't think autism necessarily improves.
No, no, I
I
mean
think
that's the case with um everything between Social Security and between what you were talking about.
exactly.
Um and
Yeah,
then no, Social Security and insurance companies is they think, oh, ADHD or ASD will improve with age. What they don't realize is it doesn't. It's something we're born with, it's something we're stuck with.
Mhm.
To go, I mean, not to relate back to me, I was told I when I first graduated out of high school, my parents put me into this is before we knew I had autism.
Mhm.
I went to a University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. They had a learning disability program. And we had a dinner where we met former students. And I sat down with this one student and he literally sat there and he explained it to me. He's like, the difference between us and the rest of the student population is where it takes them an hour to understand their work, it takes us 2 to 3 hours because it takes us an hour just to read, and it takes another hour for our mind to process that work, and then that last hour is to understand what we're actually doing.
Right.
And then the head of the program comes out and he goes, listen, I'm going to tell you all something, and this is going to be a shock. He's like, you all have a learning disability. You're going to live with it. You're going to die with it, but you can find workarounds for it that will help you out in life. And that right there was the shock to my system. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that was a really interesting experience for you. And I think this is the other thing too. Sure, like the reality is we all have challenges and we all
Hmm.
have problems that we go through in life. Nobody on this earth is going to get away from not having any, like from problems. I mean, problems, challenges, losses. I mean, it's like one of the things I've had to learn over the course of time, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about. So after a while, it was like, you know what, I'm not gonna let this happen. I'm gonna, continue to advocate, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get back to work again. And actually, what happened is I connected with an agency that it's an independent living center that works with people with disabilities, and so at one point I was in a temporary position running a workshop series on independent living and autism spectrum disorders. I did all the marketing, I did all the, communications, I reached out to get speakers, you know, that can share about services, supports, experiences, perspectives. Um, and
Hmm.
after that, I actually there was an opening, in a department that involves personal care management, which is to the like this. That's where I am to this day today, where as a personal care administrative assistant. So I do like databases and spreadsheets and those sorts of things.
So that
Uh,
leads me to my next question is what brought you to Jacqueline?
what brought me to Jet? Well, first of all, I actually wanted to personally, thank her, for connecting me with you, because I mean, I'm really, like I said, I'm happy to be doing this today, and I'm glad we were both able to, connect and talk today.
Hmm.
And so, one of the things I was thinking about, like, is in addition to like what I'm doing right now. I kind of wanted to try to get involved with the autism community again. And at one point I was thinking, I was, reviewing, her business, the ASD Life Coaches.
Yeah.
And I was looking at all the different services, all the different, supports that they bring to, individuals on the autism spectrum. And, I think it really gave me time to really just take a step back and, really help me to think and reflect, like, I would want to try to be, an ASD life coach, too. And, and that's when I, I reached out to Jacqueline, I think like 6 months ago. There weren't any like open positions as far as I know, at the time. 6 months later, as like now, basically, I reached out to Jacqueline again, and that's when I mentioned that I was still interested in, pursuing it, the direction of ASD life coach, and pursuing, working with individuals on the autism spectrum. And that's, when I had my, first interview, and that's how, like, you and I connected today. And I hopefully will have a second interview, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And, I think even though, like, the company I work for right now, I mean, has been very supportive. They've been, very kind to me, especially, which to me is important, because I have struggled in organizations that are not as accommodating and supportive to people with disabilities. And I think that's one of the reasons why 80 to 90% of, adults on the autism spectrum are unemployed or underemployed. And that's because there's a lack of understanding and training, that sort of a thing.
I think I read somewhere it's 89% of those of us on the spectrum are unemployed. And to throw my opinion in there, I think part of the problem is the companies. They don't want to take the time to help, to understand. They want someone they can throw into the position, not have to worry about, oh, do they have problems with lighting? Do they have problems with sound? Why are they wearing headphones? Why are they wearing sunglasses inside? Why are they overreacting when they get stressed out? I mean, these are things they don't want to have to deal with.
That's exactly.
And yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna say, that's exactly what it is. It's again, I think it's the lack of either. This is what I have found. It's either there's not enough understanding of autism spectrum disorder, or these companies they just don't want to understand autism spectrum.
No.
It's kind of like they just want to sweep it under the rug, and just, like you mentioned, they just want to bring somebody in that can just, do the job, and just not have any, because they consider us as, having complaints and issues, and, that sort of a thing. And that's not true at all. It's just, go ahead.
They want a cookie cutter employee. That's what they want. Someone they can mold to what they want and not have to worry about, hey, we have to reform and figure out what to do for this person to make them happy. We need more companies that are doing more for those of us on the spectrum, like Microsoft, SASS. There's a huge list of 45 companies that will hire those of us on the spectrum. And the problem with some of these companies, though, is they'll only hire those who just have autism. If you have anything else besides autism that adds to that complication, say me, I have ASD, I also have ADHD, I also have OCD, and I'm also dyslexic. I have a plethora of disabilities that all kind of feed off of each other and cause problems. They don't want someone like that. They want someone who just has ASD, who's brilliant with programming or math. You need a company that will say, hey, we're willing to hire you, help you, and understand you.
I absolutely agree with that, and I like, I actually, at one point I was actually thinking about starting my own business, to
Mhm.
do like autism, consulting to, employers, and doing like, training. And I've actually made a training for my company, on autism spectrum disorders. And at some point, my plan is actually to train the managers, and employees on how to help best support, and guide employees and, consumers on the autism spectrum, because that's so important, that education.
Yes, that is very important.
That's really, really important. And I absolutely agree. Like, you don't want to just hire the person. You want to have that personal and professional rapport with that individual. I
Yes.
think that is so, and unfortunately, that's not always the case with companies. It's like they just basically they hire you and it's like, here you go, here's the work. We want this, we want A, B, C, X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I mean,
So it can be sad, for
it
some,
is sad.
for some.
I mean, companies out there need to start hiring the neurodivergents because we are the ones who over who are 10 times more brighter than the average person. You get someone who's on the spectrum who loves the program, you throw them into a programming position, they will thrive 10 times more than someone who is an NT who will burn out. We won't burn out because it's our passion. And then that leads me to my next question to you is, do you have your own hyper focus or special interest?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, um, definitely hyper focused interest. Well, I think for me, like my biggest interest is, helping autism communities. I really like advocacy, public speaking, really trying to make a difference. And, I think about, I take time to reflect on, like where I am in my life, like what I'm doing right now. And I always get like this, thought in my head, like, helping people with autism,
Mhm.
helping people with autism. And, even just seeing the stories and hearing the podcasts and hearing, because it resonates to my lived experience, and it also resonates to, the lived experiences of others and the challenges that, that it really involves. And, just circling back to, employers and stuff. So, like at my company, I mean, I've worked with my boss for, several months, and, um, you know, we have a really good, great rapport. And, I think, one of the things that my boss, has noticed is that, I'm very detail oriented, and that,
Mhm.
basically that I'm dependable. And I think, that's what I really appreciate, from a boss, is they don't just say, see the, the challenges, the hardships. They, trying to take the strengths and trying to make, production and efficiencies better. Like, and I think, just having the opportunity and having that sense of diversity and inclusion is like, because we all have strengths. We all have
Yeah.
strengths, we all have talents. And that's, yeah. Do we have our hardships? Absolutely. I mean, that'd be just, again, that'd be even not even for people with autism. I mean, there's people who have, daily medical issues. There's individuals that, have mental health challenges, and that, other issues that are beyond the scope. And, but does that mean like that they can't be great contributors to the workforce? I think it's putting like one assumption saying, oh, if they have these experiences, they're not going to be great workers. And that's not true. It's like I mean, you have some of the greatest people that have gone on to do amazing things have come from very difficult backgrounds. They came from difficult backgrounds. They came from challenging,
Hmm.
even like traumatic backgrounds. I
Yeah.
mean, then you have people with autism, and then you also have people with autism and mental health challenges and stuff too. And that's, I mean, I was reading an article the other day, and one of the things that really concerned me was the rate of, now the rate of suicide in, adults on the autism spectrum. There was a study done in, the UK, um, and it would just, which in a way it make, because usually like I'm thinking like, okay, there's adults, and there's like older elderly adults, and part of the reason is because there's the isolation and the lack of social supports and stuff, and it's like that should be a red flag for agencies, companies, organizations, professionals, like to say, hey, these are people too that want to just be part of this you know celebration of life here. They want to be able to contribute to society. They want to be able to have relationships. They want to be able to do the same things as other people. Having those equal opportunities is so important.
Now, I want to circle back to school with you.
Mhm.
How were you able to handle classes both in high school and college, or did you struggle with that?
So when I was in high school, it was definitely, I would say high school and college, it was definitely challenging. But I think, college, where it's kind of like, well, high school, so let's put it this way. High school, it's like you're in school for 6.5 hours, 6.5, 7 hours a day straight. And then you have college where, you might have, one or two classes on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then maybe one or two classes on a Tuesday and Thursday.
Mhm.
And you have more availability and space and all of that. And it's like, I think, just, in terms of that, having that time management sort of a piece, high school, that's,
Mhm.
again, that's challenging for anybody. But for me, going to classes, having to learn all this information, then going home for, doing more work for another 2, 3, 4 hours. It was just exhausting.
Yes.
I think it's exhausting for anybody.
Yes.
Uh,
Did you do college out of state, or did you do community college or a university?
So I ended up at Assumption all 4 years. It was
Mm.
a private university,
Mhm.
and I, I just, I got some great, I got some scholarships and stuff, and that's, I mean,
No.
didn't I probably would have went the route like community college first, and then maybe to a 4-year college or something, which I know some people do and stuff, and which
Yeah.
is fun. That's always an option.
No,
Uh,
was Assumption, was that you you had campus and then you had dorms, or was it more like you just drove to school?
So for me, I was just more involved with I was like a commuter. So I
Ah,
basically was just doing more of like, driving to school.
okay. So now let me ask you, if you had the opportunity, would you take the chance and put yourself in it through an actual 4-year university out of state somewhere to get that live alone experience?
That's a great question. I think, for me, if I, thought, reflected back on that, I'd say, maybe. I mean, I'm not going to say 100%, yes. I definitely think it could have been, like a trial sort of thing. But I think, for me, I had, like I said, I mean, I had the health and medical stuff that I had to deal with, and then
Yeah,
also, I just,
yeah.
especially with transition, that can be very. I mean, now it's like it just got bigger. You're going from high school to college, where it's like, yeah, you're here local, but now you're going out to another state. It's like
Mhm.
a whole different,
Yeah. Yeah, I
scope.
understand that. I mean, with me, like I said, my parents right out of high school threw me into college, and I couldn't handle it. And then I waited until 2010, and or no, 2006. And I did my 4 years online, got my bachelor's, and then 4 years later, I went overseas for my master's.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and I was older then, so I was more prepared for it.
Yeah.
What I wasn't ready for was the level of stimulation the minute I hit that airport. And and all the factors coming in at me of, oh, you can only have one parent with you at the gate. It's because of 9/11. There's nothing we can do. And the stress of me going away, I had my very first meltdown. My mind didn't know what was going on. All I knew, I was in tears, crying, cussing out the guy behind the desk. And at that point, my father just said, your mother will go with you. She's closer to you. And we were lucky enough that where the gate was, there was a glass wall with a revolving door and a guard. And my dad was able to sit on the other side. So he was able to see me head off onto the plane. And my mother was with me while I waited until the boarding call. And then once that boarding call came on, it's like a light switch flipped. And I stopped crying and my mind just turned.
That sounded like a really difficult experience that you
It
had.
was. Now, talking about difficult experiences, how did you handle COVID?
So, basically, I was basically cooped up in my house pretty much like the last year or two because most of the work I was doing was remote. Um, and I think, for me, like, I think, COVID has really had an impact on not just me, but a lot of people. But I know for me, like, it was definitely anxiety, depression. Um, it was just really difficult, to connect with people, because I was so used to like going out in the community and having lunch or dinner with a friend or
Mm-hmm.
kind of go see a movie or and I'm very fortunate I have been able to do that or go do something like mini golf. So I think, and even like I'm reflecting on it, and it's like even right now, like there are days where it's just like I'm so used to being in my own house, it's like I don't even want to go out sometimes. It's like
uh,
you're so used to the routine, but at the same time it's like I do want to be connecting with people and stuff, and I want to be involved in communities and stuff, but I just the just hearing of just hearing the whole COVID news, and just it can be mentally draining. I think for, again, not just for me but for a lot of people, and we're just trying to adjust to what's called the new norm, per
yeah.
speak. So I think it just I do actually remember I was laid off a couple of months after like we first heard of COVID, which I think was like in 20 somewhere in the beginning of 2020. I don't remember exactly what month, but I remember like a couple of months later, basically, because and that's what was happening. People were, they were getting laid off, or they were, they basically losing their jobs because the companies are trying to save money and stuff. And it really had an effect because of that pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So that was another adjustment for me. Fortunately, I was able to make a connection with another company, and that ended up working out. So I
Yeah.
know that it was not the case for all these people that have lost their jobs because of the of COVID and stuff. I'm sure it took them months, weeks. It took them time to actually find another job. And so it's crazy.
Lastly, I want to let's talk about dating and girls with you.
Sure.
How is the dating scene with you?
So I think right now, like I'm kind of like 50-50. I'm kind of like it'd be nice to meet somebody special, but I think at the same time, it's like I'm not feeling it like right now, like to be in. I mean, middle and high school. I mean, I've definitely, there were some girls that I met, when I was in middle and high school that, I thought, oh my God, they're so, beautiful. And, oh my God, like, I mean, I could go on a date with them and something like that. But I've also have experienced some difficult interactions, I think, with, with women in the past, like,
Mm,
especially high school and college. And I'm just like, and sometimes it's like, it's almost like it's not you. It's just, it's the not you, it's them kind of a thing. It's like, and that's, I mean, that is part of, life in a way,
mm,
but at the same time, it's like, I mean, I want to be accepted for who I am, and be accepted, like, listen, this is what I have, and, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing the very best I can in life. Um, Honestly, sometimes I even hear relationships can be complicated.
yes.
So that's again, not the case for all relationships. But I think for me, what's really important right now is I'm still, I'm back in the workforce, I'm working on building my life more. I'm working on, you know, basically myself. I think that's the first and foremost important thing is you have to be able to focus on, yourself before
Yeah.
you be able to focus on, others and stuff. But I mean, dating, I would, I'm definitely something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind. But it's also, taking other things into consideration, as time goes on.
And lastly, where can people find out more about you?
Um, so basically people can find out more about me via autismpeer.com. So that is the website again, autismpeer.com. I have blogs, publications. And I'm sorry to say, I have not updated that website in quite a while. I've had a lot on my plate. Um, and I mean, I'm also on LinkedIn. If anybody, if anybody's interested in, learning more about like my professional background, that sort of a thing. Um, and Yeah, that's pretty much all I have in terms of the social media piece.
And that's it, everyone. That was Ryan Litchfield, PCM Administrative Assistant. I'll catch you in the next one. See you there, everyone.